Some of the best Star Wars stories are those outside of the feature films, exploring and expanding beyond the limitations of Hollywood and a 2-hour movie experience. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order provides an original chapter in the new canon that feels new, but familiar within the Star Wars galaxy, and fills in details for the rest of the galaxy outside of the Skywalker clan. Let's start off with a basic question. Is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order worth the money? Hey everybody, welcome back to Ridir Gaming. I appreciate you stopping by. Today we're talking about, is Jedi Fallen Order worth it? Just starting off the bat, I want to say yes. As a Star Wars fan, I will say this game is an absolute must. As a video game fan, I want to say this game is definitely on the, yeah, you should probably buy it, and you should definitely buy it if it's on sale. Hey, if you're not a Star Wars fan and you're coming to see if this game is worth it, yes, I still think this game's worth it. If you have gone through and you've played most of the Star Wars games, leave a comment down below. Tell me what your favorite Star Wars game is and whether you think that Jedi Fallen Order can actually live up to it. If you expect to be able to button mash your way through this game though, be prepared for failure. The game focuses on
an elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
Requires careful timing, quick reflexes, and keen observation. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is of course published by EA, as they had the exclusive contract with Disney. The developer though is Respawn, the guys that made Titanfall 1 and 2 and Apex Legends. It's available on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Windows through Steam and Origin, and it was built on the Unreal Engine, one of EA's favorites. It's single player only, which is really surprising considering it's published by EA, and it was released on November 15th, 2019. It initially received rave reviews and fans were really excited, and it still sits fairly high with 9 out of 10s and 8.5s out of 10s across much of the review sector. So why so much hype for this game? Well, one, EA had said previously that it didn't want to do single player games anymore. It only wanted to focus on multiplayer. So the fact that we got a Star Wars single player only game was absolutely amazing. Also, we've been in a huge Star Wars game drought. I mean, it's just absolutely devoid. If you look prior to EA getting the contract and then after EA getting the contract, we had over 30 games in 5 years, I want to say, and then something like 5 games over nearly a decade. So actually getting a well thought out made game by Respawn is fantastic. It also wasn't a skin over an old game, kind of like Battlefront equals Battlefield. One of the best things about Jedi Fallen Order though is it's a story that expanding something that we hadn't seen in Star Wars since The Force Unleashed. And last but not least, it had lightsabers, and we're not playing as Luke or Rey. Like, there's some creative development in this. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has the protagonist battling against hordes of Imperial troopers and droids with a few creatures from each planet, and either with or against the certain planet's defenders depending on where he is. It's driven by lightsaber combat and force powers, and there is some vehicle driving, but it's really rare. There's a couple of quick time events, but those are usually only against bosses and only at key moments. It really is mostly like you're going into and out of a cutscene. There's a mixture of enemies really good here. So you have stormtroopers, which are ranged, and then you have scout troopers, which are melee. You've got everything from like heavy repeating blasters all the way to rocket troops and heavy melee. The combat is really kind of a Dark Souls, Batman Arkham series. It's not really a stealth game though. I mean, this is really straightforward. You can replay it because there's 3 different difficulties, but it is not going to be that type of game where you can go through one playthrough and be super stealthy, and the next playthrough you're super overt. It's an overt Star Wars Jedi, like you're kind of locked into one direction on this game.
Now this is a Respawn game, so they have a couple mechanics that they're really well known for. One of them is wall running, the other one's grapple hooks. Well, there's no grapple hooks here, but wall running becomes a key aspect of the game, and part of it is that they use wall running for puzzles, and I'll be honest, they do puzzles very well, and the pacing of the game extremely well. I mean, this game, you go in, you have parries, you have hack and slash, you have melee combat, but then you have sections of the game where you have to figure out puzzles for the environment to move on to the next section.
So let's get into the good. There's fluid movement, there's a lack of bugs, and it's very straightforward. This game doesn't really hide anything from you. It's linear map design to a degree, but it makes it feel very open. It doesn't feel like you're really that limited except for a couple places.
Hey, BD1. I'm Cal.
Your companion, which is BD1, is adorable. What's with Star Wars and droids stealing the spotlight and emotional highlights? But this game uses BD1 instead of just being like, oh, it's a droid companion. It actually implements a lot of the key features through BD1. Your pause screens through BD1. Your map screens through BD1. Your healing is through BD1. It's all through this droid, so it really is a companion instead of just a tag along. Enemies also fit within canon. They feel appropriate to Star Wars and can present a good challenge. It's not one of these things where it's like, oh, I took enemies from Dark Souls and put them in a Star Wars game and I just had to give them a Star Wars skin. No, these are Star Wars enemies. It makes it feel like a true Star Wars game. Best part about all this, no microtransactions, no in-game monetization. I think EA might have had like a stroke with publishing this game, but it was well worth it. This game is phenomenally better than most things that they put out. So let's get to some of the bad. Timing in this game has to be precise on higher difficulties. And I'm not talking like kind of precise. I'm talking like Dark Souls or Sekiro precise. Like if you're not used to this, you're going to have a rough time. I'm not used to this type of game, and I had several rage moments during combat with some of the bosses and some of the harder enemies. Also, some enemies have invulnerabilities when attacking, and this really stands out when you have waves of enemies or large groups of enemies, and I can't go through and stun them, I can't stagger them, and they're also heat seeking me in the middle of an attack. I'm dodging and they're just pivoting around on their spot. There's only one really ugly part about this game, and it's that the 3 difficulty levels are so far apart, and there's only 3 of them. So you have story mode, which is super easy, and then you have Jedi Knight, which is like maybe medium hard, and then you have Jedi Master, which is like, hey, you're not going to survive, and I'm going to sit here and laugh at you until you give up. There needs to be at least two more difficulty levels in here. In between story mode and Jedi Knight, there needs to be padawan. And in between Jedi Knight and Jedi Master, there needs to be something else. Maybe Jedi Knight, the title moves, and then Jedi Apprentice is in the middle. I could really go with that. But once you get into the combat, this game really does shine with combat, excluding the heat-seeking enemies and excluding the, like, you can't stagger them, but they can stagger you during attacks. Your primary weapon's a lightsaber, and it's either a single blade or a dual blade, and it's supplemented by force pull, force push, and slow. All these are fantastic, and it really makes it feel like you're a Jedi. Parry's your absolute best friend, but don't worry, it's the same button as block, so if you do it too early, you still block most attacks. Except for those really angry red ones, you gotta dodge those. Attacks can be in any direction, and that is awesome, because you can be fighting 5, 6, maybe a dozen enemies, and they're in a circle around you, and you're attacking one, click down so that you're tracking it, you kill it or you click off, and you see that you're getting attacked from behind. You can literally go through a combo and end up with a stab behind your back and finish off an enemy. It's really cool. Like, it's very smooth animation. To the uneducated eye, it looks like a Swordmaster did the motion cap and animation for all the lightsaber fighting. Now, if you do die, you lose XP, and you gotta track down your mortal foe that actually struck you down. Hitting that enemy, though, grants all your XP and your health back, and this can be really helpful in those large group fights if you don't want to use stems, which are your limited health packs. You can go through, you get hit a couple times, and then you hit that guy, and all of a sudden you like slow down time, you get all your health back, you get all your XP back. So stems are super limited in this game for your health, and it can make you approach different fights different ways. But you can unlock extra ones and you can upgrade them. You can also upgrade all of your abilities in this game and unlock new abilities as you get more XP and you get more skill points. It's really nice how they did the skill tree. It's really simple. It's nowhere near, say, Skyrim deep. It allows for casual players to get into this genre and play well. So yes, thumbs up on the skill system.
Sit down, kid. It's time to land.
Respawns disguise the loading screens almost everywhere within the game. You still have a couple, especially when you die, but the ones for traveling between planets, you're in hyperspace and you're talking to your companions, or you're going through a level and you're about to hit a cutscene, or you're just coming out of a cutscene, and instead of having like some weird loading screen stop it, you go through like these really confined spaces where Cal Kestis, he's crawling through really narrow passages. Instead of like being really quick, it slows him down, and there's dialogue, and it's visually appealing, and there's stuff to look at as you're going through. But you can tell, like, okay, this is a really long passage. This is probably going to be loading another section of the cutscene. This is a typical Respawn game. Like, everything is taken care of. They wrote the story very well, and everything is brought into it. I mean, it explains when you are in the timeline, how the Republic fell, the Jedi are traitors now. It's been 5 years since the end of the Clone Wars. They're scrapping all the ships, but they're making new ones for the Empire, and that's how the Empire is getting so strong. I mean, it has everything explained within the story. It's great. It's a well-written story. The plot, since it's focused on a Jedi, primarily has a good versus evil theme, but also has many plot threads
that really bring the entire story together. It's not quite as deep as, say, the original Mass Effect, but there's quite a bit of nuance to each ally that gets picked up along the way. Jedi have a strong moral compass and a code of honor, so this means that Cal Kestis is a caring individual who puts others' needs before his own. Most of his companions also have issues in their past: gambling, loss, tragedy, failure, feelings of guilt, and need help working through most of it. The other plot threads kind of focus on the redemption and coping with that tragedy and how to keep moving forward, as well as helping others. I mean, instead of just being out primarily for yourself, fighting and protect other people and being kind of protective of those that can't protect themselves, and when to use force and not to use force.
Respawn has really outdone themselves how they make sure that there's empathy and sympathy, making sure that you can feel what he is feeling and make sure that you understand the plight and make sure that you understand what the companions are going through and how the Empire is affecting everybody's life. It goes through and it hits on multiple aspects of the galaxy and culture, and I respect how they're using video games as a storytelling method vice just a game to make money. Like this is a work of art vice just a video game.
But the other thing that makes an appearance in this game are places you've never seen in the Star Wars galaxy before. You have Bracca, which is an Imperial scrapyard, and we always had questions like, where did all the ships go from the Clone Wars? Where did all their gear go? Well, Bracca is just a giant scrapyard world, and that's what they do. They just tear it apart. And then you have Bogano, which is a remote outer rim planet. Unexplored, really just uncharted. Zepho, another small uncharted planet, key to the story. And then you get Dathomir, which has never been in the movies, but has a rich history in both Star Wars Legends and canon. And it's good to get back there and kind of explore it more in official canon. And then, of course, you have Kashyyyk. And Kashyyyk has been in Star Wars in the movies, but it's such an important part of the Star Wars galaxy. I really enjoyed Kashyyyk. It was probably my favorite planet. But going back to Bracca, it's the tutorial planet, right? And it's fantastic. It's well integrated into the game. It introduces mechanics and backdrop to the game. It introduces who the protagonist is, Cal Kestis, and it introduces why he is running across the galaxy. Everyone that's watched the movies knows that Cal can't be the hero that saves the Jedi Order. That was reserved for Luke Skywalker, and then it became Rey. So this can only go one of two ways. And, well, if it can only go one of two ways, I'll let the guy in the big black armor and the red saber kind of decide that one. We got to stop there or else I'm just going to get so deep into the story that I spoil the entire thing for you. I really recommend, if you are a Star Wars fan, this story is good enough for you to pick up and play. So as we look at Jedi Fallen Order, we see that this game is gorgeous. Now, I'm running it at 1440p on an RTX 2080 on PC, and it's absolutely amazing. Everything is on Epic, nothing is scaled down, and I simply love it. The visuals are gorgeous. On Xbox and PlayStation 4, obviously it's slightly less than what you can have on PC, but the lightsabers, the blasters, monsters, it all looks and behaves and feels so good. It is Star Wars. This is accompanied by music, and it's composed by Stephen Barton. He did Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, Titanfall, Cirque du Soleil, Apex Legends. It's just good Star Wars music, and it doesn't overpower any particular scene, but it's always there and brings the right mood and feeling and emotion. This is where you start going from the older games that don't really have much of a theme to them to an actual medium and storytelling in the video game. Now, separate from the music, you have the special effects sounds, and that's everything from the blasters, explosions, ATSTs, AT-ATs, shuttles, lightsabers, everything. It sounds like it's from the movies. The lightsaber itself is done very well, and it hums to life and it sizzles off as we've come to expect. You have the sound of the force powers, you have communication, you have dialogue. It's all done very well. The sound overall, nothing takes away. Everything adds either emotion or realism, or it sucks you in. It makes the game just so much more complete. Sound is one of the few games that I would have given an A+. All right, so how this game is rated is one of the few times I've seen the PEGI system from the UK and the ESRB from the United States be vastly different. I won't say it's vastly different. PEGI is PEGI 16 for violence, and I can see that because maybe the UK is a little bit more sensitive to violence than we are in the US. Got it. ESRB has it T for teen, which is your 13+. And that's for lightsabers, killing and destroying enemies, frequent combat. Fights are highlighted by screams of pain, impacts, and large explosions. And oh yeah, you can literally throw people off of cliffs. Thanks, Respawn. I really enjoy that mechanic. I'm glad it's back. But when you go through this game, you can't cut any of the people in half. The droids, the creatures, sure, absolutely. But you cannot cut any of the actual troopers or anything like that apart. The word bastard is in the game, and that's as bad as the language gets. If you go to commonsensemedia.org, they have the game rated between 8 and 11 years old. I'd say that's pretty accurate based on the individual child's maturity. And that's probably where I'll introduce this game to my kids because I'm a Star Wars fan and I really want them to enjoy Star Wars, but they're not quite old enough for it yet. As of January 2020, the game's already been reduced from $60 to $40, and that's for most reputable resellers. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's easily worth 20 bucks if you can find it there. The story, graphics, the lack of bugs, its smooth gameplay easily make it worth 40 bucks for most fans. It's a little bit short, so some fans really don't want to pay the 60 bucks for it. I really think like somewhere between 30 and 40 bucks for most people these days. The Elite and Limited Edition, the special editions of this game are a complete ripoff. There's no microtransactions, so they try to get a little bit of extra money out of us. I'll admit I paid for it, but everything the special edition comes with, it's in-game cosmetics. Everything else in the game can be found in the game. If you have never played a hack and slash type game that deals with parries and blocks and everything like this, it is a great game to be introduced into that genre. If you want to play, say, Dark Souls or you want to play Sekiro, this game is a great way to introduce yourself without being overly punished time and time again. This has been Ridir Gaming. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please stop, hit that like button. If you haven't been here before, consider doing the subscribe thing. It at least makes me feel better. Like, let's be honest.